And welcome back to GMA3, everybody, on this day after in America. And Senator Coons of Delaware is one of those lawmakers who was in the Capitol during yesterday's deadly ambush. Yes, it was a deadly ambush now. It's described the events as scary and chaotic, I guess, to say the least.
Yes,
we all saw this play out.
Least. Senator Coons joins us now. And Senator, I know, as we just said, you were there when this all unfolded. Can you walk us through what happened? What was going through your mind at the time?
Well, thank you for a chance to be on this morning. Yesterday was a very dark day in American history. I've served here in the Senate for a decade, and I never imagined that I would see a mob of rioters breach the Capitol, police in full combat dress, armed troops evacuating us from the Capitol, and then it taking hours and hours for them to regain control of the Capitol. We were in the middle of a debate on the Senate floor because a dozen of my Republican colleagues had decided to indulge themselves in President Trump's unhinged fantasy that somehow he actually won the election 2 months ago that he lost. And in the Senate chamber, it's very well insulated. You can't hear what's going on out in the hallway or elsewhere in the building. When Capitol Police and then heavily armed officers sort of burst into the chamber and said, the Capitol has been breached, we need to lock the doors and secure in place. That was our first indication that something was going desperately wrong. That was after Vice President Pence was abruptly hurried off the podium. And then about 10 or 15 minutes later, they hurriedly escorted us out to another building in the Capitol complex. And it became clear as we were running down the halls and through the tunnels here, and we went past Capitol Police officers who'd been tear gassed or who'd been hit or who had wounds on their heads, that it had been a raucous, a violent, a very disruptive day in the Capitol. And then once we got to the Hart Senate office building where we sheltered in place for a number of hours and all of us could see our phones and they set up a television, then we got to see the images that the rest of our country and the rest of the world watched for much of the day and much of the night last night. Truly sickening and disheartening. And frankly, I'm gravely concerned about the stability and safety of our democracy for the next 13 days, given that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, invited and urged all of these protesters to come to Washington yesterday because it was the day that the Electoral College results would be certified, and then spoke to a rally of this crowd in front of the White House and urged them to come up to the Capitol and to be rough, to be wild. And the outcome is something that has weakened our democracy, further divided our country, and from which we must recover.
Senator Coons, what do you think should happen? Because there's some suggestion, well, it's just another 13 days. Do you think, and it sounds like in your answer there, maybe you don't think we should make it another 13 days. What should happen now? Should his cabinet take, I know the 25th Amendment is supposed to be for folks incapacitated, but people are talking about the idea now of him not being mentally fit. Do you think we should just wait it out for another 13 days with the president?
Well, TJ, if we're not going to use the 25th Amendment in this moment, then I'm not clear what it's really for. It should be abundantly clear to leaders in the Republican Party that this president, who they have made excuses for, who they've coddled, who they've facilitated, all the way back to Charlottesville, where in a similar riot, where there were people killed and there were protesters, he insisted on saying there were very good people on both sides. The way that he has led, the way that he has conducted himself has slowly and gradually built to what happened yesterday. So if the leadership of the Republican Party, the leadership of the Trump administration, his cabinet, his vice president, don't see this as a moment of very clear and present danger, then I don't know what the 25th Amendment is for. We lay naked before the world as a country whose leadership is at war with its own constitution and its own processes. And one of the things that really struck me to the core very late last night, I was looking at statements from other world leaders, from dozens of other countries, allies and adversaries, who were commenting on what this scene at the Capitol means for our democracy and our place in the world. Removing Donald Trump as president is urgent. He has stopped the responsibilities of president. For the last 2 months since the election, he hasn't been dealing with the pandemic. He hasn't been dealing with Russia's broad-scale and successful cyber hack assault on our national security. He's been tweeting and golfing and spinning up conspiracy theories. This man does not deserve to be president of the United States anymore.
Senator Coons, I also need to ask you about how you believe it got to the point it got to yesterday in the Capitol. Where was the security? Where was the anticipation when you saw those crowds? And certainly we saw a much different reaction when you had Black Lives Matter movement. There was preparation. There was the anticipation of violence. None of that happened yesterday. What led to this massive breach in security?
Well, there was clearly a failure of planning and of leadership, a lack of coordination to have prepared the kind of different eventualities fully planned for. The Capitol Police were doing their best to maintain a perimeter around the Capitol, but once thousands of protesters marched up, many of them openly carrying weapons, I think the Capitol Police should have recognized, their leadership should have recognized that they were outnumbered and that they were going to need backup. It was hours before other law enforcement resources were brought in from surrounding counties and states. And in those hours, it was chaos in the United States Capitol. I am grateful for those members of the Capitol Police who tried their hardest, badly outnumbered, to try and prevent the protesters who physically broke into the Capitol. They should have used some non-lethal means like tear gas earlier. They should have had a farther out perimeter. But look, I'm not a law enforcement professional. All I can say is these images are profoundly damaging to our place in the world. There was a tragic loss of several lives yesterday. It did not have to come to this. But what really matters is that it was the President of the United States who urged people to come from all over our country for this assault on our Capitol. That's what really matters. We will do after action reviews of the failures of planning and the need to better secure our Capitol, this temple of democracy that is known around the world. I do think it was important that the Senate and the House reconvened last night, finished our work, and that Vice President Pence declared Joe Biden the duly elected next president of the United States.
Well, Senator, we all watched as Americans in horror, concerned for you and your colleagues, no matter what side of the aisle or what your politics are. We're glad to see you and that you all are safe and okay. But thank you for spending some time with us, and we'll certainly follow up, Senator Chris Coons.
Thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.